Stream Elements says. Fayulala is now live streaming, AR/N Morocco game development Unreal Engine.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Decryption and I hope you are well. Doors. That's right ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at doors, but we're going to be doing special doors today. Now I've done a few tutorials on mine where we can open drawers, we can open jail cells, open doors. I'll run through that in a moment just if you haven't got that. But basically we have a door that we can open and close, right? So you can see as I walk up to the door it says door open, press E, the door opens, I can go in. I can look at the door, it'll say close as the guard watches me, close, boom, door closed. Dead easy, right? But the part what we're going to do today is all of this stuff in here is loaded 100% of the time. If you're far away, then world partition, in my game at least, will hide it away. But it's still in memory. Like, I'm all the way over here. I'm even in this house. Here, look. I'm in this house and I'm looking in these drawers. So in this case, why is this house still got an interior with everything inside of it? If this has got loads of interactables, if those drawers are interactable, if you can sleep in the bed, write a piece of paper, whatever, it's all loaded. And that's going to take up a lot of memory. And the bigger they get. For example, if I go to this castle, which is not loaded, well, basically, let's stop the game. I have a castle over here if I enable it. If I'm walking around the castle grounds here, all of these houses have interiors, and all of them, if I slow down, are loaded. As you can see, if I go over to this one, okay, that one's not got one. If I go over to this one, it's all loaded. And the castle is the biggest one, so if I go inside here, as you can see, it's all loaded. But we don't need it to be loaded because we're not even in the castle. And it's surrounded by doors and stuff. So what we're going to look at today is an old PS2 style technique. I call it the PS2 style technique. It's still used in modern games now. But prime examples is an interior is not there until you tell it to be. Now, in some olden games, it changes levels. So if you imagine Skyrim, in Skyrim, as you enter a dungeon or enter a house, unless it's just an open house you can go in and out of, you will physically change levels. And the same is with Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. So you can see San Andreas has all the interiors on one map, and you simply load into a different portion of the map. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is we can dynamically tell all this stuff to not render unless this door tells it to render. Now, if you've got big glass doors, you're going to have to find another way, whether you block out the windscreen or you do that cool effect where it shows the interior from an image, like Spider-Man. So you can see in Spider-Man, you have the cube effect. That room does not actually look like that. Of course, we could make it look like that, but the room's not there. Whereas in our case, we can make it so all of this interior here, that doesn't need to be visible. There is a glitch. I need to split mine up because that also hides, but ignoring that, the interior does not need to be visible. And that cup as well. Get that darn cup. There we go. So you can see, you cannot tell that's not loaded. Until we tell the door, now tell it to load, and we go in, and then everything is suddenly loaded. And then when we close the door, or we leave, then we can tell it to deload itself. And that means all the memory is still intact, and we have a good performing game. If you imagine this bed here, it's a lovely bed, isn't it? This gold, that's a gig in RAM. It's not. But if it was, you keep that rendered, it's going to be a gig, trying to keep that there, whether it's RAM or GPU memory. We don't want that. So what we're going to do is tell it to unload itself. Now, it will take a bit of time for you to conquer your entire world. As you can see, I've got like 4 civilizations in mine. One's hidden away. It's going to take a while to do. It will. It's games design. But if we put the code in there, then we can make it work. So, where do we start? Let's take a look at my basic door here. So I have a blueprint door here. I've covered doors loads of times, but I'll show it you anyway. I've got an interface which is assigned to it called BPI door that has 5 functions: open door, close door, is door locked, and it has an output of is locked, locked state has an input, and is open has an output. On the BPA door, it's an abstract class there. All I do is set the lock state. I set whether the door's locked. The is door locked, I return it there. The set lock state, set open, they're just returning the variables. The main part of this is the open and close door. So the first thing it does is call this door state change, passing in the sounds. That's simply just a little quick thing down here where it caches the rotation, it plays the sound, and then it deactivates the interactable so you don't see close open as it's opening. And then play sound literally just loads it and then plays the sound. That's it. It plays a timeline which selects whether it should open or close and then does everything it needs rotation wise. And then on the finish, it simply calls door is
Oh shit, this will not work. this wall ornament.
open, reverses the variable, sets the text of the interactable, and then simply tells the interactable to open again. That's it. It's super simple door. But what we're going to do is take advantage of data layers, which is a Unreal 5 world partition thing, where we can tell specific interiors to load or unload. And it's going to be really useful to make our game performance. So like this house here, it's 3 stories. We can turn all of that off if the doors are closed, which is going to be really cool. You can only use this if you are in Unreal 5, and you can only use it if you're using world partition. If you're not, then I don't believe you can use data layers. I think there is a one called layers or levels. I've never used them. The other option you can do is you can do it the old school way, where you change levels. So you fade to black, change a level. So for me, most of my houses are just going to be load the interior as you go to them. However, if I enable the castle over here, I'm going to make it so nothing inside this castle is loaded until you interact with this door. And at that point, I'm going to level change Skyrim style, so that I can load everything in the castle. And because we're changing levels, we can make the castle more detailed, so we can have more NPCs walking around. If you imagine this entire castle is loaded with the entire world, all these NPCs around here will be walking around. They won't over there because we'll do optimization technique, but all the NPCs here will also be in memory, even though we're like, 5 stories up in the castle. Whereas if we level change to the interior of the castle, suddenly we don't need any of the outside rendered. So it's a double benefit, but it's going to be really cool. By the way, epic mustache. But yes, so let's start with the data layer version. If you are using Unreal 5 with world partition, you can use both, and I am going to be using both. But just use whatever you can. So let's start from the beginning. What is a data layer? So a data layer is a type of layer, if you've ever used Photoshop, or a group of actors that you can toggle on or off. So to get the data layers window, you simply go to Window, World Partition, Data Layers Outliner, and you can see we have a list of existing ones I've already created. You won't have any. But it's pretty simple. It's just like your outliner. You have a visibility flag, where you can make it visible or not. Then I can see I've got my entire Elven pack. I can unhide it. And then you've got whether it's loaded in memory. So just because it's not visible doesn't mean it's not loaded in memory. It's loaded in memory, ready for you to go bang, make it visible. That's why it's so quick to make it visible. If I unload it from memory, you'll see it took a lot longer to do. Not massively amount of time, but it's still enough that your users are going to see it. So you don't want that game freeze. So what you'll typically do is you will load it in a cutscene if you've got one, and then when you want it, then you'll make it visible, and it's super quick, just like that. So checking this on and off, I can actually see my GPU's memory going up by 2%. So just to show all of this here. And then if I make it invisible, it doesn't really change it that much. So yeah, it does do it. So what we're going to do is let's create a new data layer. And there's 2 types of data layers in Unreal. There's an editor only one, and then there are asset based ones. So the editor only ones is literally in the editor to make lives easier for developers. That's it. If I don't want to see that entire Elven as a developer, I can just uncheck it. But the other option is asset based data layers, which is this one here. So you can see you've got create new private data layer, which if you hover over it is editor only, and then you've got data layer here, which is with an asset. So let's go and create a new data layer, and then I'll just create a folder called data layers, but I've already got one. And inside here, let's name it. I'm going to do this first building here. So I believe it's DL_Elven building inside 4, because it's the 4th house, I believe. And we'll start that. So you can see it's added it here. Whatever you name the data layer is what it'll be called in here. I don't mind it being called DL Elven building blah blah blah. If I stick to that standard, the alphabeticalness will organize itself. So what I'm going to now do is come across to all of my actors that I want to be considered the building inside. So I'll select the glass, holding shift, I'll click on other things, and I'll click the floor as well, because let's face it, you don't need the floor. And there we go, everything's been removed that we don't need. Yeah, pressing H to make sure I've got everything, and then Control Z to undo it. And then I'm going to right click on the data layer and choose add selected actors to selected data layer. And you've equally got remove if you accidentally put one in. So I'll click add. If I toggle the visibility now, you will see the interior disappears, which is perfect. If I uncheck it, obviously it's not loaded in memory, so I can no longer make it visible. So if I show it again, I can make it visible. You can double click it if you want to work in it, which I believe is anything you do will automatically be added to the data layer. If that's something that'll be helpful for you. I don't use it that often, but I'm still getting to grips with data layers. Now there is one caveat that we need to cover off now, and it's something that got me the first time I was using it. If you click on your asset that you are going to show and hide, and in the details, so search for is spatially loaded, you need to make sure that this is ticked, but you also need to make sure it's not controlled by a parent. So what that means is if I come to my outliner, you can see I've put this inside at root. It's basically doing nothing. It doesn't exist in looking at a parent somewhere. However, if I go and find the parent for this house, I'll just click the house here. If I put this back inside that parent there, this parent is controlled by another data layer, what controls this section of the map, and that's okay. But this interior here is now locked to that parent, meaning it will follow whatever the parent's going to do. I don't know why Unreal doesn't really specify this anywhere. I'm guessing the way data layers work is if the parent's loaded, all the children are recursively loaded as well, meaning the interior that we're wanting to control from somewhere else. Super simple fix, just don't parent it, stick it in a folder. So I'm going to stick it inside this buildings folder here, like so. And now you'll see if I turn that off, it's there. If I select everything else that I want to also be, I'll just drag it inside there because it's all the same anyway. If I hide this now, and the final one is this one, there we go. Yeah, so now all that can be invisible, and the spatially loaded, if I click the parent, which is one we're loading, is spatially loaded. We've got control over it. It's just an important thing because the code we're about to do will fail and it will just always load it because this bit is always loaded. So now we've allocated our assets to our data layer, some other things we need to just quickly check on is in the details, it has its own mini details. I don't know why it's not part of the details. It's like it gets its own sub details panel. Bit weird, but it's alright. Inside here, the flags that we want to look at is the initially visible and loaded. These are only in the editor. So when you first come into the map as a developer, do you want it initially loaded? Well, I don't want it initially visible or loaded. So when I reload my map, that won't be loaded anymore. So if I just come and find my map, and if I come back into it, even though that's set visible for me, you'll see it's invisible as soon as I've come back into the map, because we've set the editor default. It's going to be a good practice to hide some. So I'm going to just enable it again here, because these are only temporary, these ones, just for the editor. And then the other one we need to look at is this part here, initial runtime state. So when the game first loads, this is the runtime, what do we want it to be doing? We've got three options. Unloaded, it's not in memory, it's not visible. And that's what we want by default, so we'll click that. But the other options are loaded, which means it's in memory, but it's not visible, so you can't see it. And then you've got activated, which I don't know why they've called it activated. Surely visible would have made a bit more sense. I don't know, but activated it is. Activated means it's in memory and you can physically see it, it's rendering. Whether you're looking at it or not, you know, that kind of thing. So we'll stick with loaded like so. And that's really the only options we need. So let's actually customize our door now to tell it to hide and load that. So if you've got a door, that's going to be the best point to start with, but you can equally do this with a key press, a keyframe, anywhere you want to put it. I'm just hiding it behind the door. So what I want to happen is as soon as I tell this door I want to interact with it, I want it to do its normal interaction stuff, but then I want it to wait. So I want it to deactivate the interactable so we can't keep clicking on it, and I want it to lock itself down, however, and then I want it to load the assets in the background, and then only when it's finished loading the assets in the background, then the door can open. A prime example of this is Batman Arkham Asylum, the first game. So in here you can see every time you click on a door, it does that loading sequence where the door opens and stuff like that. Sometimes it's very quick, it just looks like a door. However, sometimes you'll notice it takes a while to open. So as you can see now, they've clicked on the door and it's just taking ages. What it's doing is unloading stuff behind you and loading stuff in front of you. Probably far away through another door or something, but it is loading it. And if your computer's super fast, you'll probably never run into this. If you've got a slower computer, you'll